Part 1. The Diary That Changed Everything. The silence in my study was broken only by the ticking of an antique clock. I sat at my wooden desk, examining the weathered pages of my grandfather's journal when I stumbled upon entries that sent chills down my spine. He wrote about a village in Brazil called Horrifying that vanished overnight in 1923. All 600 residents disappeared without a trace. No bodies, no belongings, only a wooden sign left in the village square bearing 3 chilling words, "There is no salvation." My grandfather described how locals whispered about ancient rituals deep in the jungle, about stone circles where villagers gathered under the full moon. They believed they had discovered a way to open doors to another world. That sign, it wasn't a warning, it was a farewell. They knew there would be no return. I closed the journal, feeling goosebumps rise on my arms. If this was true, then the boundaries between worlds were far thinner than anyone dared to imagine. And somewhere out there, in the darkness, were those who had already found these doors, and perhaps those who were still searching for them. Part 2. Messages Across Centuries. A year later, the next clue found me in the most unexpected place. In an antique shop in London, I discovered an old BBC microcomputer from 1984. The shopkeeper told me it had belonged to a schoolteacher named Ken Webster. When I connected it in my study, I found strange files still lingering in its memory. Messages from someone named Lucas. But the impossible part, Lucas claimed to be living in the exact same cottage, but in 1546. I stared at the screen in disbelief. How could a 1984 computer with no internet connection receive messages from the 16th century? Ken had written in his notes that Lucas saw replies appear on a slateboard in his home. And when Lucas wrote on his slate, the words materialized in Ken's computer files. This wasn't data transmission. This was a bridge across 4 centuries of time. One night, as I was reading these messages, the temperature in my room dropped suddenly. On the monitor of the long-dead computer, text flickered to life. "You are next. The portal will open." I shut down the system and didn't sleep all night, listening to the wind howl outside my window like a warning from beyond time itself. Part 3. The Gateway to Darkness. My search led me to Hauska Castle in the heart of the Czech Republic. This 13th century fortress holds a terrifying secret. As I stood in its courtyard, a local guide told me a story that made my blood run cold. The castle wasn't built to defend against invaders. All its defences face inward, as if designed to keep something contained within. In the centre of the courtyard yawns a bottomless abyss. Legends say it's a gateway to hell itself. But the most horrifying story comes from the 18th century. A condemned criminal was lowered into this chasm on ropes in exchange for his freedom. When the guards pulled him back up, his dark hair had turned completely white within minutes. His eyes held such terror that the guards couldn't bear to look at them. He died an hour later, without ever revealing what he had seen below. I stood at the edge of that chasm, feeling the unnatural cold rising from its depths. Suddenly my compass began spinning wildly, and my phone showed strange interference patterns. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't legend. This was reality. And deep below, something waited, hungry to break free into our world. Part 4. The Man from Nowhere. The next clue came from Frankfurt archives. In 1851, a mysterious man appeared in the city wearing strange clothing. He called himself Jafar Vora and claimed to come from a land called Laxaria, a prosperous kingdom that should have been located exactly where Frankfurt stood. When shown a world map, he was horrified. His homeland had vanished. He spoke a mix of Old German and an unknown language, describing technologies that wouldn't exist for another century: flying machines, devices that captured moving images, machines that communicated across vast distances. Scholars were astonished. But the most incredible event happened at night. Despite strict guard, Vora vanished from his locked cell as suddenly as he had appeared. I studied his writings in the city archives when I noticed a strange symbol scratched in the margins of his journal, the same symbol that appeared in my grandfather's notes about Horverde. This wasn't coincidence. Something or someone was moving between worlds, leaving traces behind. and I felt certain Vora had been trying to warn us about something terrible coming through these doors. Part 5. The Ghost Ship's Secret. My research led me to the shores of the Atlantic, where in 1872 the most mysterious ship in history was discovered, the Mary Celeste. As I stood on the deck of a museum replica, the captain told me a story that sent shivers down my spine. The ship was found in perfect condition, sails partially set, supplies of food and water for months. The crew's personal belongings untouched. Even the ship's logbook lay open, its last entry dated November 25th. But the entire crew of 10 people had vanished without a trace. No signs of struggle, no evidence of panic. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife and their 2-year-old daughter all gone. I studied the investigation reports when I noticed a strange detail. On the day of the disappearance, other ships in the area recorded anomalous compass readings. What if the Mary Celeste had encountered a spatial rift? A theory I found in classified documents suggested that oceanic portals only allow living beings to pass through. The ship remained because wood and metal cannot cross dimensional boundaries. That night, I stayed awake drawing maps of anomalies in the Atlantic, and then I understood. All these cases were connected. They weren't random. Something was opening doors, and someone needed to close them before it was too late. Part 6. The House That Breathes. The most personal part of my investigation began in Virginia. I bought an old house described in my grandfather's journal as a place of power. From the first day, strange things happened. The interior was clearly larger than the exterior. Hallways stretched longer than they should. One night, I discovered a door in the basement that hadn't been there before. Behind it lay an endless corridor stretching into darkness. The walls seemed alive, pulsing in rhythm with some invisible heartbeat. I returned after what felt like an hour, but only 5 minutes had passed in real time. My camera malfunctioned trying to capture this place. I found the previous owner's notes, Will Davidson, a photographer. He wrote about rooms that appeared and disappeared, about his daughter who spoke with a friend from the walls. In his final journal entry, he had written, "The house isn't a building, it's a living portal, and it's hungry." I stood in the center of the living room, listening to voices whispering in an unknown language from behind the walls. The house was breathing, and it knew I was there. In that moment, I understood my grandfather's final words. The boundaries between worlds were thinner than we thought, and some doors were never meant to be opened. Part 7. The Final Key. Everything led to one place, the Peruvian Andes. I stood before the Gate of the Gods, an ancient stone archway carved into the mountainside linked to Titicaca. The whole shaman who guarded this place looked at me and said, "You come seeking answers, but are you ready for the truth?" He told me how the Incas used these gates to travel to the world of gods, how priests passed through them and returned with wisdom. But some never returned at all. The shaman showed me symbols carved into the stone, the same symbols I'd seen in my grandfather's journal and Vora's notes on the walls of the Virginia house. "The portals open when reality grows thin," he whispered. My grandfather knew this. He found a way to close some doors, but not all. Suddenly the sky darkened, though it was midday. The gate began glowing with blue light, and I felt the fabric of reality around me begin to tremble. The shaman grabbed my arm. "They know you're here. They wait for you on the other side." In his eyes, I saw not fear,